Habari zenu. I can see nobody is answering, so I can understand.
These are very funny.
I can understand.
Kamesa. Yes.
Ni wewe.
Wewe si mtu.
Guys, if you are ready, give us thumbs up.
Today is houseful.
Yeah.
Something that we didn't add, and we have to reinforce that snap election. Remember that you put it up the last time?
Yeah, that now has to be in accordance with the signing of into law.
But it went down very, very well with all the public. So we can also reinforce that when we went to also the party that we are also disciplining our and the ODM is also doing the same. Okay.
Who will give us the thumbs up? I see all of them are here.
That's a full house.
Full house. I think we get going, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, good morning. Still is. The very hard morning. I'll read this statement on behalf of all of us in Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party statement entitled, "We strongly condemn the sponsored violent protests and support the public demands for the resignation of Ruto regime." Good morning and thank you, members of the press, for joining us today. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party is deeply concerned about the recent increase in violence during the Gen Z-inspired protests. In the last 2 weeks, Gen Z has inspired the majority of disenfranchised and disillusioned Kenyans to exercise their constitutional rights to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to petition. They continue to do so in a manner that has captured the attention not just of Kenya, but the region, Africa, and indeed the whole world. In the typical fashion of a tyrant, the Ruto regime attempted to silence their voices by intimidation, arrests, abductions, and hijackings. This did not work, and indeed it shall never work. According to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, local and international media, the police executed a shoot-to-kill order that extinguished 41 young Kenyan promising lives, with over 300 Kenyans admitted to hospitals with gunshot wounds. We also note that the youth raised their demands from hashtag reject the finance bill to hashtag Ruto must go. Ruto and his henchmen sponsored goons infiltrated with the sole intention of destabilizing the continued peaceful protests. These disgraceful, criminal, and illegal activities violate the right to peaceful protest as provided for under Article 37 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Despite these perpetuated horrors, the young people have continued to march our streets, determined to drive and realize meaningful change for themselves, their families, and their country. We have observed that the intention of yesterday's well-organized, coordinated, and state-sponsored chaos was to undermine and denigrate the Gen Z-inspired nationwide non-violent protests. Looting was intentional. The destruction was planned. The torching of public and private property worth billions of shillings was carried out in collaboration with the already corrupted security forces in the full glare of the media, and indeed the international media as well as the onlookers. We also note that despite a court injunction prohibiting the use of live ammunition, tear gas, and crude weapons to disperse protests, police continue to deploy arbitrary gunfire, resulting in innocent deaths and injuries. To restore peace in the country, we demand that the police act swiftly in identifying and apprehending all the violent and criminal elements that infiltrated the peaceful protests. There are many questions that Gen Z, Azimio, and the world have, the two most significant of which are: why is Ruto, through his henchmen and thugs, hiring goons to destabilize constitutionally protected protests, causing chaos and mayhem? Is the goal to declare a state of emergency and suspend the constitution? Given Ruto's blatant mishandling of the economy through punitive tax policies, increased domestic and foreign borrowing, runaway corruption, ethnic and tribal public sector hiring, and astounding capacity to splurge on domestic and foreign travel and other luxuries, increased unemployment and high cost of living, the growing dissatisfaction the Kenyan public was to be expected. Generation Z is tired, and Kenyans are tired. The slew of lies has left the hustlers, quote unquote, distraught and traumatized. Kenyans have had enough of Ruto and are demanding that #Ruto must go today, not tomorrow. To expedite the people's wishes, Azimio demands that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill 2024 be immediately signed into law. We are aware that this bill has been sitting on Ruto's desk for days now, and the Kenya Kwanza dictatorship is reluctant to sign it into law. As a coalition, we call out to Ruto and demand that he assent to this essential bill that allows citizens to hold their representatives in the legislature accountable. By the way, the Constitution says if you want to withdraw your member of parliament, you have to wait for 2 years. The 2 years are coming to an end on the 9th of August. So really, this is timely. We have officially, through our constituent parties mechanisms, put on notice all Azimio legislators who went against the wishes of their people. We are supporting the call for their recall. We continue to offer our condolences to the families of all those who lost their loved ones from the police bullets. We also wish those admitted to different hospitals quick recovery. We also note with concern the intention to divert the public attention from the real issues by purporting to adjust the salaries of senior state officers, members of parliament, members of county assemblies, and governors upwards at a time when the country's economy is not doing well. We urge our members to reject the salary increments. We call on all Kenyans to unite and defend the values of justice, democracy, and peace, for which this country has been known. As a coalition, we are steadfast in our commitment to advancing the interests of every Kenyan citizen. Finally, it is time for Ruto to take responsibility for all his actions. He has blood on his hands, and he should go to allow for a smooth transition of power. Thank you, and may God continue to bless our country, Kenya. I can only very quickly...
Members of parliament.
Sorry, we have 2 members of parliament, the leaders actually, the leadership of parliament, both Honorable Wandai and Honorable Mbui, the leader and the deputy respectively. Although they call them minority in that parliament, we never accepted the reality that they are not the majority and the deputy majority respectively. Mheshimiwa Wandai.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency. I just want to clarify to the nation, really, that first and foremost, it is a matter of fact that the Gen Z and indeed the public have been calling for the reduction in salaries paid to senior state officers and public officers, including members of parliament. And therefore, it would be insensitive for us as members of parliament to accept any purported salary increment amidst the rage that is out there. As a matter of fact, again, I want you to go on record that I, together with my deputy, Honorable Mbui, have rejected in totality the purported salary increment by the SRC.
I think we need to give you
and we are asking the National Treasury to reallocate that money towards employing the JSS teachers, towards employing health workers, and in fact towards helping the youth who are out there struggling to get gainful employment. I'll be, of course, together with my deputy, calling upon my colleague members to follow suit. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
If there's something my colleagues may want to add, but you may have noticed that over the weekend, while in Kitui, I did call for the possibility of a snap election, and actually gave comparison between Kenya and what is happening also in the region. When the French President Macron realized that his party lost majority during the recent European elections, he called for a snap election. The French are on to that. Tomorrow, the 4th, Prime Minister of the UK, Mr. Sunak, also called for elections, really literally snap elections, on July the 4th, all over the UK. This is a moment for Kenya. But that's why we are calling for very quick enactment of the IBC Amendment Bill 2024. So at least there may be a possibility, assuming the youth in this country will allow that opportunity to happen. So that's one of the things that we made very clear over the weekend. And again, we looked at what happened in Parliament, the desecration of Parliament. There's blood right outside the entrance to Parliament. And we suspect, I've never gotten this confirmation, the young man who sat on the Speaker's chair was brought down. Blood right in the chamber. How, in all honesty, will members of Parliament want to sit in a place like that? These are some of the questions that we must ask as leaders. But, Mheshimiwa Eugene,
If there are any questions?
If there are questions, I can deal with them.
African governance report 2023 under the African peer review mechanism actually highlighted this particular issue.
Speak out.
Highlighted this particular issue.
You know, you can step out a bit
and speak
so
up.
we can hear you.
The African governance
You just come right there
Okay.
so we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, because the media actually, so the media can focus on you.
The African governance architecture under the African peer review mechanism gave a report on governance, and they highlighted these particular issues on youth, on unemployment, on various other things. And there's also a plethora of issues within this particular report. Are you calling for a transition committee? And in this particular transition committee, who do you have in mind as Azimio?
Transition committee at the national level?
Yeah.
That is where if the institutions...
Perhaps also considering the youth are also disgruntled with these particular institutions to include parliament and perhaps the judiciary. And that can be witnessed by the banning of parliament and the banning of the judiciary. So, what can you say about that?
That is a lot of food for thought, but Jeremiah, I think you had given some thought to it actually.
No, let me just say, clearly, when the Generation Z started with the Reject Finance Bill, there are those who had estimated their resolve. And what we have before us now is hashtag Ruto must resign. What we hold as Azimio also is that the executive plus the legislature should give way so that we can be able to get a new start. We need radical reforms in the country. We do not want cosmetic application. We actually need a radical, the constructive surgery of the institutions that have been affected. And with this, of course, we will be inviting even the judiciary to look at possibilities of helping us through this transition. But it is an issue that needs to be processed by us properly so that we are able to come up with an idea or a suggestion that will ensure that the country moves on. What we do not want is the country to go the Somalia way. But we are certain that we cannot be able to live any longer with William in power, with William and his cabinet in office, and equally with a parliament that have been impeached. So we have provisions in the Constitution. You can look at Article 134 all the way to Article 146, and we need to interpret them a little bit more liberally so that we can be able to get ourselves out of where we are. And it is possible for us to transit from where we are to a next system which is more inclusive and perhaps one that can help us navigate through the difficulties that we are in. The only other thing that I can also add is the issue of financing. There is a struggle with the Ruto to try and assign financing to individuals all over. The Generation Z or Generation Z were being financed by their parents. Bus fare, pesa ya kunywa chai, pesa ya kurudi nyumbani, bundles, that is the financing that was being done by parents. So if you are looking for who was financing, go for the parents. Stop scapegoating and stop hiring goons, like it has been said.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Another question, or we probably end it up there?
There's one on this side.
I think you better be seen by your colleagues.
You think? Yes,
These are days of absolute transparency.
What do you think?
You will not ask a question in secrecy.
Yeah.
So, anyway, go ahead.
Azimio given a directive to the coalition governance, we get the pay hike.
The pay rise. We're going to do that. I think that, well,
It was
he has spoken on behalf of
MPs, yeah.
the National Assembly. This goes to all our governors, all our MCAs, right? Complete and total rejection. In fact, it's like kicking our youth on the teeth. When they have been shedding blood to have a better country, then you go and do the opposite.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.